Welcome back to the National Defense. It's Randy Miller, and you know her from, you could know her from anywhere. I mean, Basic Instinct, to Catwoman, to Casino. Sharon Stone is our guest on the National Defense. Sharon, how are you?
Just terrific. Thank you. How are you?
Great. It's just that voice. How much of your career has just been that voice?
Well, I have done a number of books on tape. So I've done some performances. I did Peter and the Wolf with the symphony.
Oh, wow.
So I have done quite a few different kinds of vocal performances over the years. I did the movie Ants.
Oh, yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. And I did a series a long time ago called Harold and the Purple Crayon, which was a children's series.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, you just get one of those unmistakable, beautiful voices. And we're glad that we've got it here on the National Defense. And now, you know, we tell a lot of inspiring stories on this show, Sharon. And I think your story right now is so inspirational to so many people. If we could get into that just a little bit.
Oh, the story of my brain hemorrhage you're talking about?
Yes. Well, no. That's the beginning of the story. The story of your brain hemorrhage and anything like that in your business, you might as well be dead, right?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, I've worked with wounded warriors, and I think that, you know, I have a big understanding of that because I had such a very difficult injury myself. I had a ruptured vertebral artery and a massive stroke in 2001, which took me way out of my life and my career, and I had to learn to walk, talk, read, write, and everything all over again, which I'm sure many soldiers have had to face huge catastrophes in their lives.
Absolutely.
From their service and from being wounded in service. And so it's always my pleasure to talk to soldiers that have faced injury or are dealing with the injuries of their compatriots. It's a very big thing, and it's a big thing to go through any kind of injury that takes you years to recover from or leaves you with some disability. In my case, I have a brain seizure disorder, where I've had to, you know, have my jaw and my teeth reconfigured. I'm just in the process of having surgery on my nose. You know, there's endless things that happen when you have a major injury, and it's just a long slog.
Right.
And I know that many soldiers don't have enough insurance to go through all of that. And I've been outspoken about the need for better insurance for our soldiers, better armaments, more armored cars in the field, all of the things that are really so needed. I find it offensive to send soldiers in the field without the appropriate amount of armored cars and appropriate amount of armored vests. And I just feel that we have to take better care of the people we're asking so much from.
Yeah, you know, and well said, Sharon. We're talking to Sharon Stone here on the National Defense. We went into parts of Afghanistan embedded with the troops a few years ago. And when we got there, everything that you're talking about happened. They didn't have enough food. They didn't have enough weapons. They didn't have enough of a lot of things. So when we got back, we were able to talk directly to some people who could make those things happen. And that's one of the greatest memories I have of the show because, you know, until you see that and you know what's going on, you just don't understand. They're out there by themselves.
I was greatly offended of the way that we got into war in 2001. Yeah. That we got into it in a flash of upset and not in a thoughtful, planned way that protected the fine men and women that went into the service for us. And I don't think it's appropriate to send men and women into the field without protecting them.
And that just underscores the dedication that these men and women have that are in the service. I mean, they can't say no.
Their dedication, but it does not underscore our protection of their dedication.
True. No,
a lot of the young men and women that go into the service because we don't have enough funding for further education, and they go into the service because they're in communities that can't afford to pay for their education. They go in because they're below the poverty line. Their only way forward, and they need to get an education, and it's their way through. And we have to admire and respect that. And we have to admire and respect that to the level that we are protecting those fine and respected people who want to push their lives through and do it by giving service to our country.
You know, and we talked about that inspirational aspect of your life, Sharon, as far as coming through your medical situation, and then you just finished up a series on at HBO called Mosaic.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, congratulations. I mean, that's coming all the way back. That's coming all the way through.
It was a big journey, and it took me about 16 years.
Wow.
To get to the point where I felt I could take on a role that I could shoot 20 or 30 pages of dialogue a day and be ready to memorize and be on my feet and together to do that day after day.
Yeah, but I was just going to say, I think the other part of that is the fact that that people were offering you roles again.
Well, it is hard to get back. When you're at the front of the line and something happens to you, and you recover, you're not just back at the front of the line. You're at the end of the line.
Right.
And you have to work your way forward again. And your previous track record means so little.
Mm-hmm.
It means you can maybe get a meeting, but it certainly doesn't mean you're going to get a job. And I have a lot of thoughts and care for all the hardworking men and women that come back and don't know where they're going to go and don't know what they're going to do. And I feel that we have such an organized system for how we're going to take them out of their jobs,
right,
and take them out into the field. But we don't have an organized system about how we're going to bring them back into their lives. I don't feel that that's really squaring us up with the people who are dedicating themselves to us.
You're exactly right. You know, we had Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs on the show, and he's got a foundation for veterans, and he put it in a very succinct way when he said, you know, there's boot camp for when you're going to war. There's no boot camp for when you're coming back. And
well, not at all. And there should be a preferred hire.
Yes.
For service people.
Absolutely.
And there is, in fact, seemingly less preferential care for service people.
We just talked to the president of Paralyzed Veterans of America, and had that exact same discussion, because when you're disabled, it's even worse. And nobody wants to hire you. And
that's the thing. And when we sent people out into this snap decision war in 2001, 60% of our soldiers didn't have insurance or armored vehicles or vests or anything. That's more than half of the people that were going out to serve the nation.
Right.
So we've got to understand that we're going to be sending home all kinds of wounded veterans without a plan.
Yeah, and that's what we try to do on this program, is to raise those concerns and kind of solicit that support in terms of people being more aware and being more involved. And you've been involved in social issues and humanitarian efforts all your life, haven't you?
Yes, and raising money for Navy SEALs.
Yeah,
and trying to help people have some understanding of what it really takes. Because I'm not a proponent of snap decision going to war. I think that should be the last possible choice.
Absolutely.
And I think no one feels that way more than a soldier in the field.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's, when you talked about your work with Wounded Warriors, we just partnered with them officially a couple of weeks ago. So they are
excellent.
A regular member of the National Defense Radio Show, and could not be more proud about that.
Good. I think that's so good, because we look at people willing to give their all, and then we give a half-assed hello when these people return. And I just don't think that's a fair exchange. I think we have to put these people on a preferred hire list. We have to remember to thank these people for their service. We have to stand up when they stand up for us.
Absolutely. So well said. We're talking to Sharon Stone here on the National Defense. Can we talk about your career for just a little bit?
Thank you.
Who is the best actor you've worked with?
Well, the best living actor I've worked with, of course, is Robert De Niro.
Who was on this program 4 weeks ago?
I really admire Bob, and he's taken such an outspoken position lately, and I have to say that I admire him for speaking out his views, and because he's a very shy person, and he's saying what he really truly believes, and I think that takes a lot of courage and a lot of grit,
right? And
not concerning himself about what will happen to him or his career.
I think he's pretty well set, don't you?
Well, I think he's, I have said things and then not worked for, a term of a president. You have to be cautious.
So you could actually point back and say, I didn't work during that presidency. I didn't work during that presidency.
It can happen.
Wow.
And you have to be cautious, because when you say something against the person who holds great authority,
sure,
a person can crush you. And I think that when people stand up to power and say what they believe for the betterment of the greater good, I think that's a very courageous thing. And I think that we're at a time in the world when things are just reaching such extraordinary chaos,
right,
that we have to be careful about being sheep. And we have to say yes to things that are correct, and we have to say no to things that we know are intrinsically and basically wrong for the greater good.
I don't think anybody's ever going to call Sharon Stone a sheep.
Well, I hope not. I really hope not, because I believe in the greater good, and I believe in humanity, and I believe in the goodness that we share. And I believe that it doesn't matter what religion you are, as long as love is your strongest pursuit in your heart, and
Absolutely.
That you pursue that without unkindness to others.
So when you did Basic Instinct, did you have any idea how big that was going to be?
Well, when I read it, I knew it was a spectacular script.
Yes.
And I knew it was a very edgy part.
Yeah, because a lot of actresses turned that down, right?
Yes. Like 12 or 13 actresses turned it down, luckily for me. But Michael Douglas was already set in the part. And Paul Verhoeven was already set to direct. And the script was already magnificent.
Right.
And they already had a fantastic cinematographer and a big budget from an A studio. So, and they had a terrific set designer. So it wasn't, in my opinion, an enormous risk, because I knew how to play the part.
You absolutely knew how to play the part. In fact, you look back now and you think other actresses were actually looking at that part. I can't imagine anybody else in that part but you.
I think it was a part that I understood. I understood when I read it that she was a sociopath, and I started to research what type of sociopath she was. And that was very intriguing for me.
I'll bet.
And I liked the sort of elegance of her particular illness. There was something I thought very intriguing, and I thought that everybody had a handle on it. So I didn't think it was going to be tawdry, and I didn't think it was going to be exploitive.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that Verhoeven did a great job directing it, and I thought that Michael was fantastic in keeping it to its genre. And I thought that everybody knew exactly what they were doing.
That's interesting to hear how you approach that.
Well, I watched a lot of different kinds of films and read a lot of different things. I read William Styron's book, Darkness Visible, which he wrote as he was having a nervous breakdown.
Oh, wow.
Which was totally fascinating, which I thought demonstrated the way a mind can sort of implode. And I read the various different takes of Joan of Arc, and I thought Shaw's version was really extraordinary. And I watched some amazing film that was shot inside a prison of serial killers, interviews of serial killers discussing why they did what they did and how much they wanted to stay in prison and why, and some reenactments of their crimes. And it was absolutely very compelling and intriguing, and helped me to understand what that impulse was. It was a very intriguing sort of combination of things that made her particular illness. And then, of course, we had to make it into a cinematic character.
Sure.
So, we had the very great Ella Mirojnick as the costumer and that kind of things that bring it to life. But I thought that it was a really interesting kind of character to play.
Yeah, and it always shows up on the list of best movies of all time.
Oh, thank you.
And Sharon, listen, I just thank you so much for taking the time today.
Well, I'm a very grateful person to be able to live in a free country, and I'm very grateful to the men and women that risk so much for us. And I have such compassion for them and for what they go through, and tremendous empathy for them, for the suffering that they have to endure. And I just want them to know that having gone through a major crisis, I understand what that means, and that I feel compelled to continue to try to be helpful in that area.
Well, thank you so much. And just consider this an open invitation for you or any one of your friends that want to come on the program. We would love to hear from them. Love to hear back from you.
Thank you. And I just want to send my kindest and most loving regards to the men and women in the field, and let them know that they're constantly in our thoughts and in our prayers.
You have been fantastic. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
We'll be right back here on the National Defense.